Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good evening.
Good afternoon.
Good day.
Goodness.
I'll give it to you. You can say it this time.
No, it's fine.
It's been a while since
No, I don't want to cheat.
In that case, Loch Ness.
I'm not a rule breaker.
How
You
strange.
said good evening before I said good afternoon. It's a travesty.
But isn't the point that it's not in
it's
sequence?
not the
Is that it's you know
Oh, is that the point, is it?
you can do what you like, Nick. There's no rules. There's no bits of until we sit down with a committee and write down the rules. Then I
This is the committee.
well, ruddy commit to it then.
I'm ruddy well committee. Hello, this is the Benji and Nick Show anyway, and we discuss cult television, don't we, Benji?
We certainly do, yes, amongst other strange topics, but mostly cult television. We are two people that love anything from the past, and what better avenue to go down than to talk about it for you people to listen to.
Well, that's a matter of opinion.
But today's
hopefully you'll agree with Benji.
But today is not just you listening, it's you talking, because today we are talking not only our latest TV watches, but also we're getting around to your emails. We'll have a chat with you and see what's going on at your end. What's going on in your neck of the woods, eh, Governor?
Oh, well, you told me you were going to remind me to download that file of Survivors. I'm doing it now.
Certainly did. He's doing it. I'm doing it, Sybil. I'm doing it.
I got that notification. I'm going to do the music for Survivors for Big Finish.
Ooh,
Anyway, what have I been watching? Well, I just started sort of searching for something that my wife and I would enjoy watching, and she suggested, because a friend of hers suggested it to her, The Umbrella Academy on Netflix.
It's meant to be very good.
And because I'd watched 5 minutes of it, the first episode, and thought, nah, it looks like rubbish to me. In that really open-minded way.
Dismissive, yeah.
But, forced to watch the whole first episode. We accidentally watched the beginning of the second episode, and then I suddenly noticed it said E2 at the top of the screen. Netflix has gone completely haywire. I can never find the next appropriate episode of Star Trek Discovery. It always takes me back to the beginning of Series 1. I think, what are you doing? I'm signed in. You must know, which is I've pressed continue watching. Anyway, angriness aside, so we did finally watch the first episode of the Umbrella Academy, and it was good. It's
solid.
Really well written. It's intriguing. Episode 2 was really quite dull, I would say, in comparison, even though it was still pretty. So I can't remember whether we've watched episode 3 yet, but we're gonna watch it all. It's got some great performances in. It's a superhero story, but they've done it in a different way.
Well, it's meant to be very good.
Yeah. Well, I think that meaning is clear.
That's Nick drinking a glass of water there to just really make his point clear.
Yes, I'd just like to say...
Completely agree with you there.
I think that makes everything perfectly clear. Crystal clear. Crystal glass.
Crystal glass.
That was the sound of me wiping my moustache with a piece of kitchen roll. I suppose, I think we've explained what that is, Umbrella Academy. Anyway, the Orville, I've mentioned that I withdraw everything I said before about it. It's fantastic. I was loving it. I went off it for a couple of episodes, but I'm really back on it and think it's amazing. And I'm so sorry for anything negative to say. I'm sorry. All right, I'm sorry. Star Trek Discovery, amazing. Just can't wait for the next. My wife has just texted me. I don't know whether you heard a ping then.
I thought it was my phone at first. I was getting confused.
Yeah. I've just bought some music for the Benji and Nick Show and another podcast we're doing. I've got to tell her, because otherwise she's thinking I've been defrauded. Yes, that's true. I have. Don't worry. I'm in the shed, she's in the house. We don't speak, we just text each other.
So sort of
okay, she says.
Oh,
okay.
that's all right.
Okay.
Sort of like a monastic sort of ritual, isn't it? Yes, we don't talk unless we communicate with writing.
This texting is on the podcast, I've said. I bet she won't reply now.
She'll leave everybody hanging.
She's quite, ha! She says, exclamation mark. She's quite taciturn, my wife, I would say. You've never met her, have you?
I've not, no.
Only on FaceTime.
Only on FaceTime,
Zoom,
yeah.
Or Skype or whatever, yeah.
I'm sure it won't be long, I'm sure.
No, she says she never wants to see your ugly face again.
Well, that's very kind of her. I normally get a lot worse.
She didn't say that. As we mentioned before, when we asked for Regan and Sweeney, the movie Sweeney, we got sent Regan and Sweeney 2. Benji was boasting last time that he's been sent Sweeney.
I have. Sweeney is here. Look, that's the sound of it.
Oh, don't tempt me. I went rushing in after the last podcast to check to see whether it had been delivered. Steph just said no. But she had a box. I said, what's that? She said, it's a box. That's the kind of conversations I have with my wife. I said, well, what's in it? She said, I don't know. I haven't opened it.
Perhaps the Sweeney's in it. Maybe it is. I doubt it.
Recycled glasses. It wasn't to me, so it wasn't going to be Sweeney. Anyway, so I started watching the Sweeney 2 for the hell of it, really to test out a new Blu-ray drive I've got, and which takes great screen grabs. I'm a bit disappointed. It's a bit dull. I mean, Regan and Carter are great, but they've got who is it? The guy who played the King George in the Madness of King George movie, who was in Yes Minister, who played the civil servant, who's now so sadly no longer with us, I believe. Really famous actor.
Nigel Hawthorne.
He plays Regan's boss. I think, well, where's the guy who played Haskins?
Who's always drinking milk.
Hmm?
Haskins is always drinking milk.
Yeah, because he's got ulcer. Yeah. And Denham Elliott was playing sort of Regan's ex boss, who's bent as a 9-bob note, and he's asking Regan for backup in the corruption trial, and not even Regan can back him up because obviously he's into so many dodgy deals.
Well, it'll be intriguing to see in Sweeney 1 whether or not Haskins is actually in it.
Yeah. I mean, what I felt watching this, I thought this is just a cop movie and they've just applied it to the Sweeney. Also, the music is by Tony Hatch, who did the theme tune of Crossroads and the Champions. The two things I can think of. And, of course, he gives it this kind of orchestral feel. Slightly swanky, but orchestral. And that's not what the Sweeney's about, is it? The Sweeney's about sort of... What's the Sweeney music about?
Well, it's
Benji?
all lots of funky sort of, bass. Dum, 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 bum, bum, bum. It's really establishing the time, isn't it? And it's that sort of inner city beats and funky and real and there,
Yeah, and they've obviously decided that they have to kind of sound like, I don't know, big movies, even though it doesn't look like a big movie at all.
I mean, when was Sweeney 2 made?
78, I think.
Yeah, so I suppose it's getting on. I mean, Sweeney 1 was 76, so maybe they realised that it was wearing a bit thin, or maybe.
Well, they haven't realised, but I think it was.
I know they changed the famous title sequence for Sweeney 3 and 4 in the series to that weird,
they did,
with loads of mirrors and stuff. So maybe this was like
and they had a little bell, a police bell ringing as well. Which is very
making
annoying.
lots of noise.
I thought, why have you put a bell in it where the police cars go neenah, neenah? They haven't gone ding-a-ling-a-ling since the 1960s.
Well, that's what confused me. Sometimes the bell sounds on Sweeney as well, and I get really confused because it never seems to register with me that that's what it is.
Well, they must have still been using a bell occasionally then in the 70s.
How strange. How strange.
Very strange, but the funny thing about the recording of the orchestra of this Tony Hatch score, I mean, at the moment, I've only about half an hour in and there's very little music. But it sounds like, they got a cheap deal with the orchestra. It sounds like the orchestra's not mic'd properly.
Oh, God.
Sounds like they're playing in a big hall and they've just put one microphone in there.
No, maybe that was literally what they did.
I mean, it's terrible. It's a bit like the Sweeney film's going on, and next door there happens to be an orchestra playing, and they think, oh, just get a mic to the wall and see if you can pick up any of that. That's quite good. That sounds like Tony Hatch.
I'm just listening to the... They've not even got the Sweeney theme, have they?
No, but they don't in either film.
The Tony Hatch Orchestra.
That's a little disappointment you've got coming for Sweeney for the first film. They don't use the Sweeney theme. I mean, what the heck were they thinking?
Seems. I mean, maybe they wanted to. It seems silly not to keep a link between the two films as well. Not as well as obviously it should have a link with the TV series. It feels like they've gone a bit cavalier and it hasn't paid off. But
I'm calling it Sweeney 2. It just seems bonkers because people will instantly think, oh, it's that it's part of a series. So I don't know. So that's a bit disappointing. But the jury must still be out, probably in the other room where Tony Hatch is with his orchestra.
With one microphone.
Probably saying, "Can you turn it down, Tony? I'm the jury and I'm out, and you're just playing this music that I don't want to hear and not micing it properly.
You're wasting my time, our time, but more importantly, you're wasting your own."
Thank you, sir. The jury's out because I haven't watched the whole film. Unfair to judge. One last thing I'll mention that I've watched from time to time on Talking Pictures TV is Spearhead. Have you seen that?
No. Is that the military thing?
Another drama from the sparklingly brilliant, in inverted commas, Southern television, where it followed the sort of
Royal Wessex Rangers.
It's a regiment of soldiers, yeah.
Ran for 3 series.
Yeah, incredible. And it's, typical ropey Southern production values with terrible lighting in the studio, really poor film stock on all the location stuff, and the kind of edits which they didn't optically print the edits, they just cemented them. So almost all the film edits judder.
Oh gosh, that classic Southern television thing that. Yeah. I realised very quickly from Dangerous Knowledge that's exactly what they do as well.
Oh, well,
judders around.
The interlacing or whatever it's called on the Vision Mixer's not working properly, is it? Because every cut on the Vision Mixer, you get a half frame whiz up.
It's very cheap,
I don't remember
isn't
it looking like that on Talking Pictures. Maybe that's just the DVD release. This is boring even me. Anyway, Spearhead I think it's written by Nick McCarthy. Is that right?
Spearhead. I was just looking. There's another one, isn't there? Warship.
Now that's something must watch.
I was going to say that's something I would have thought would be right
that's
up your Strasser.
That's a BBC one. It's basically a soap opera set on Her Majesty's warship, whatever it was called.
Nick McCarthy was the writer.
McCarthy or McCarthy? Is it?
It says here McCarthy, McCarty. So
I'm just checking. I got it wrong.
I thought the same. I thought surely it's McCarthy, but clearly not.
But anyway, he wrote it, and I don't know whether he was a sort of expert on the army, because I may have mentioned this before. This is the second podcast I'm experiencing deja vu in. Also, can we talk about An Englishman's Castle? No, I'm joking. Okay, Nick, he keeps talking about the same thing every week. Every week is the same thing.
He's obsessed, man.
Nick McCarthy must be some kind of army expert, because the dialogue I sense is very authentic. So authentic, a lot of the time I can't work out what they're talking about.
Really? How strange.
Yeah, they sort of rabbit on about stuff, and the phraseology they use seems totally alien to me. Anyway, it's worth a watch because it is a significant piece of TV history, because it's a snapshot of male attitudes in the army, and I mean the sexism and the racism. There's a black member of the platoon, and there's a lot of really kind of awkward stuff to watch about that. Generally not too bad, but it's like everything on Talking Pictures TV, actually. And I'm really sorry if you're living in a territory that doesn't get Talking Pictures TV. Everything is of, without sounding too highfalutin, sort of sociological, historical value. It's really, I find that stuff really interesting to watch. if you take yourself out of the bracket of being offended by it, you just assume, yeah, obviously this is offensive in some small way or other every now and again, but you just carry on watching it to see what it did have to offer. It's also a bit nostalgic as well. I noticed an episode I was watching seemed to be set in Vietnam, or I don't know, it was set overseas, and they had clearly left England to film it.
It's pretty good go for these, these shows, isn't it?
I mean, I imagine they did the minimum shooting abroad, and the rest of it was in a field just outside Southampton, with a few exotic plants placed near the camera.
I love all those sorts of things like they used to do. Jungles, they just have lots of potted plants. Yeah. He's looking at you, Planet of the Daleks. Great fun, though. But Talking Pictures is great because I'm considering getting rid of Sky because it just feels completely pointless. I don't use it. I don't watch a lot of live TV, really, so just it seems like a waste of time, really. So I had to plug it all in, set up the Freeview purely to see if I had Talking Pictures, because if I didn't, I wasn't going to get rid of it. But I do.
Talking Pictures is on Sky as well.
It's on Sky, but I wanted to make sure that my Freeview picked it up.
I see.
Which
it's not
it does.
On all of them, is it? Yeah.
So that's fine.
I remember when Mark Gatiss first started tweeting about Talking Pictures TV, and I couldn't get it here out in the wilds of Dorset. I was thinking, and he was going, "Now watch Talking Pictures on blah, blah, this is," and I go, right, I haven't got it.
I can't get it, man. I can't get it.
Abort, man, abort!
Abort the mission, man.
But then there was an announcement that they'd increased their reach.
Well, they've done a damn dash good job.
It's channel 81 on Freeview.
Oh, there we go. We'll check that out.
Talking
It's always
Pictures
something. I mean,
TV.
my recorder is just jam packed full of stuff that for months as well. I just see things and record it because I love it so much. And yeah, excellent work. Excellent work.
Anyway, that's me finished rabbiting on. Tell us about you and your viewing.
What have I watched? Well, I've certainly delved into a bit of Minder. Because I'd only heard of Minder really before and seen little bits of it, and so I was recommended to watch Minder, so I gave it a go. I just actually, do you know what? I just did a search on YouTube. Terrible, but didn't know what to expect, and I found the first episode on there. So I gave it a watch and just thought, this is a great show. And I love it, especially because it's got that wonderful... It's got all the little bits of sort of like the vibe of the Sweeney. Yes. With that sort of time. And I mean, it's a little bit later on. This is sort of late 70s, early 80s, I think. But it's also got such a great comic value to it, the characters. And poor old Terry, played by Dennis Waterman, just superb. Really a great, well-rounded character. But it just makes for really enjoyable viewing.
Popular, mate. Back in the day, I remember it was kind of quite dull because everyone was talking about it all the time. And after a while, as a sort of young, a teenager who's getting a bit sort of antsy and rebellious, I thought, yeah, Minder, shut up about Minder, yeah.
But that's what I do now. That's what I do now when people go on about things that are currently on the telly. It's a lot of the time why I don't watch them, because I just feel like it's too... I don't know. I've always had, as I think I've explained before, I've always had this thing where I just feel like I don't want to take part in all that buzz. I'd much rather watch it when the buzz has died down, because I don't know. Maybe I'm weird like that, which is why...
contrary, I think, is the term you're looking for.
But I've always been like it. I've always sort of rejected the current trends.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, Benji, you're such an amiable person. So it's funny that you have this rebellious streak in you.
Well, it goes back to being, 15 and being a punk with red hair and leather jackets, and I had safety pins everywhere and a padlock and chain around my neck, which stayed there for 2 years until I jumped off an amplifier on stage. It hit me in the face and shattered to pieces, and that was a real growing up moment of my life, actually, and it really hurt. It whacked my tooth, but I've still got the chain. It's still it's locked away in my little box. But I was once a once a rebellious character.
I had moments of rebellion. I I should have gone to sixth form college to do my A-levels, and I went to a technical college instead because there was a wacky drama course there.
It's good to do things like that, though. I think it's good.
I'd had enough of school, you know what I mean? I'd had enough of that standing up when the teacher came in and calling everyone sir and miss. Whereas at tech college, we called the tutors by their first names, and it was all, you know.
It's a different world, isn't it?
If we didn't have a lecture, we could go to the cinema or go shopping. Or.
Well, I remember being I was in year 10, and I was told,
what age is that for anyone who doesn't know the...
That's very true. I would have been 15. So I was 15. This year 11 is the leavers year. And so I was 15, and they were picking out people to be the school prefects for the following year. Oh. And everybody was saying, you must apply for it because it looks good on your CV in the future, bloody, 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 blah. So I was like, okay, well, whatever, I'll go for it.
Not in our business, it doesn't.
No, well, this is exactly that. But I thought, okay, well, I'll go for it. Anyway, I got called into the office, and they said, well, we're happy for you to be a prefect, but until you cut your sideburns and cut your hair, we're not prepared to let you be one. You have to get rid of your sideburns, because my sideburns were down to, they were good proper mutton chops going on there. The only guy in my year who had facial hair, and so I said, right, so what you're telling me is that I have to cut my hair in order to fit to this role. It's got nothing to do with my ability. But I rejected it. I said, do you know what then? I'm happy to just have my sideburns in my hair. Goodbye. And their faces, they could not believe the audacity of somebody to turn down being a prefect to have facial hair instead.
Those are very sweet moments in one's rebellious years when the representatives of authority feel they are offering you something worthwhile and you're not interested in it, and they have no power over you at all.
Absolutely. But I think that is the thing, especially about school, that the moment they realise they have no power over you, they've lost you. I really believe that. Yeah. It's the same, and more so nowadays. I mean, I went to a very strict school, a really good school, and they held, they really did authority, and there were stories of the headmaster one lad refused to cut his hair, and his hair was getting really long. They said if it touched your collar, you had to get it cut. One lad refused to cut his hair, and they kept asking him.
His head off.
And so the headmaster said, right, in that case, I'm going to take you down to the barber's, and he did. He marched the kid down, went with him, and got the kids to sit down and have his hair cut.
Goodness me.
That's the type of school that I went to.
I'm sure they wouldn't be able to do that now.
No chance.
That's like an infringement of his human rights, isn't it? Yeah.
But no chance. But then it's it was a Catholic school, and I'm not a Catholic actually, so it was even weirder for me. But of course, those types of schools, they've kind of got their own. They manage everything themselves.
Weird ways. I was offered a place on the rugby team for school. I hated sport, but my curse was that I actually wasn't that bad at it.
It's exactly the same here.
But I didn't like it.
It's because we're big guys, though. Like we've got broad shoulders.
I made a great prop when I was 14. I was one of the biggest people in the year. I was, I grew up quickly. I'm not excessively tall now. I'm only just shy. I used to be 6 foot something, but I'm a bit shy of 6 foot now. I've just I've shrunk over the years.
I don't want to shrink anymore. I'm like 5. I got measured at 5'9", but I'm certain I'm 5'8". I'm not the tallest of chaps. But in rugby, I was, I've got the shoulders and the build for it. The thing that always used to make me laugh is they used to say, right, lads, pick your own teams, and so of course what would happen is, all the big guys would go together, and then it would just be a massacre because all the small, scrawny sort of kids who really aren't into sport at all, or ones that thin as rakes. Of course, it was just. Imagine taking. There was no chance. There was never. They never gained an advantage. It was awful, really. Of course, it was. But it was funny. It was like something out of the Beano. It looked that ridiculous. But
yes, I have very strange feelings about sport. I mean, sport is extremely popular, and I do believe that if we didn't have sport, then we'd have a whole lot more wars.
Definitely.
So I think it's a good way for people to get some of their aggression out. Although, of course, there's hooliganism that goes on and horrible chanting, racist chanting. You know, we keep hearing about in football games. That's soccer for anyone who's outside the UK, or maybe inside the US, I should say. Yeah. So they said to me, they took me to one side and they said, right, Nicholas, we would like to offer you a place on the school rugby team. And without any hesitation, I said, oh, no, thanks. Yeah. And they went, no, we are offering you. They did, like he can't have heard us. Yeah. And I went, yeah, I know. No, I don't want to do it. They went, no, you see, we are giving you the chance. I said, I know you are, but I don't want to be in the school rugby team. And they're like, oh, wow.
Suddenly they burst into flames
and descended to the hell from whence they had come. It's just they found that utterly unfathomable.
It's funny, isn't it, though? Again, it's that the moment they lose you, you know, if you spend all your school time, if you were there and they want you to believe that being in the school team is the be all and end all and everything, but you were over it, you were like, it's not my thing.
It would be if I was interested in sport, and I don't know what's the matter with them. Well, they hadn't paid any attention to the fact that I was clearly bored by most of it. I mean, the other thing is, of course, you know, there'd be practice in the evening and I'd be wanting to watch, you know, Lost in Space or Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea or whatever happened to be on when I got home from school.
Well, I can release this little cracker. That the only sports team I ever joined, this is hilarious in its own way, I actually joined the school netball team purely so I could be with all the girls, purely because I fancied them. And how terrible is that? That's like
Did you wear a skirt?
No, I didn't. They had a few lads in there. We all had the right idea. We all worked out if we joined the netball team, then we could hang out with the girls. And like, what more do you want? Marvelous. So we did that for like 6 months, and then realised it was utterly humiliating and didn't bother after that. But it was quite amusing. You got to do these things when you're young, haven't you?
By the time I was 15, I think I was done with being told what to do.
Yeah, you just rebel.
You rise from my chair in respect for people who, when you get to that age, you start to realise you don't just look at teachers and think, oh, authority and so they're lofty beings. You've already seen what they're like, and you've seen their behaviour, sort of, you know what I mean, when they're not teaching, and I'm sure they're all very nice people in their own rights, but I found a lot of them unreasonable and flawed people.
Definitely.
And I'd always wanted to be a teacher, and then I thought, I don't want to end up like these people. That's no disrespect to any teachers listening, because I bet you're all fantastic teachers. But I just, it's back in the 70s, and you see all these young men with Kevin Keegan haircuts being slightly too interested in the teenage girls, and the sort of contradictory nonsense. I always remember I had a fantastic English teacher who I thought was really funny, and he was really interesting and everything, and he had met Laurel and Hardy, and he used to tell us stories about chatting to them and all this kind of thing, and he was very charismatic, and then one day he said, oh, did you see Doctor Who last night? Did you see it? God. And everyone looked at me like, oh, Nick's going to be interested in this, and he said, it's rubbish. And do you know what it was he'd seen?
What had he seen?
He'd seen episode 3 of Death to the Daleks.
Oh, which we're covering next week.
We're actually... Aren't we doing it now? No, we're doing it next week, aren't we? Yeah. We're going to do a commentary on it. There's a spoiler for
That's shocking. That's shocking. Well,
yeah, he did this whole thing about how ridiculous it was, how they didn't know how to get into their city. He said they're the ones who built the city and everything, and they didn't. How could they? All that ridiculous skeleton. I mean, what was that about? And I said, well, because it had been in a sterile atmosphere, Mr. Harris. And he went, what? Shut up! No, I'm not interested. And I said, and it wasn't their city. It was the city of the Exelons. That's how they didn't know to get in. And he went, what? No, it was their city. It was definitely their city. I said, no, it isn't. What I wanted to say was, I recorded the sound and have already listened to it 15 times, so I know every word of that episode.
I know.
Stupid bald old pillock who was talking out of his arse. And so from then on, I completely, because he dissed Death to the Daleks,
quite rightfully so, rebel against them straight away. But teachers are funny creatures. I mean, I remember when I was studying history, and it was the Second World War. We were doing Hitler's Germany.
Oh, yes.
Fascinating topic. And I was very lucky that I managed to get my hands on a captain's hat from the German army. And I was really excited to bring it in and show everybody it and show, you know, just an example of a relic from history, a relic from the past. And so I brought it and said, look, I've got this. And so I just wondered if you wanted to, like, show it to everybody, you know, as an example of actually what we're studying, thinking that I get real brownie points with it. Anyway, he immediately shouted at me in front of everybody, gave me detention for bringing in this paraphernalia, and then after he'd given me a detention and told me to sit down and disgraced me, he put the hat on, goose stepped up the corridor and went into the other classrooms for a laugh. I mean, like, how I'm still lost for words because it's just so hypocritical.
Well, yeah, the first action is questionable, and then the other one is completely hypocritical. Oh, it's just ridiculous. And now, for those of you interested, here is the name and address and phone number of that teacher. It's Frederick Basildon of 92 Cedric Street
in
Bolton.
East Chalk Ice.
In an act of strange coincidence, that person does exist at that address.
Poor man. I saw the teacher years later when I was out in town, and needless to say, I had a beer with him, and then later on I saw that he got chucked out the club. So I don't know what that says about him.
But you had a beer with him, did you?
I had a beer with him, yeah, because I actually didn't. I mean, he did that, but I actually didn't mind the teacher, like, because he was a really strict, horrible bloke. Everybody feared him, but for some reason, apart from that one occasion, he actually did have a soft spot for me. So he let me off when others didn't. So when kids would go around with their
like a firework, he let you off.
He let me off and I exploded. But when other kids, you know, be wandering around with their top buttons undone, he'd give them an instant detention. Whereas for me, he'd give me a look and he'd say, "Do it up, don't worry about it." And you know, double standards, terrible, really. But I think he only liked me because
I only drink German beer.
Yeah. So, sorry, mate. Where are you going in a couple of weeks? I'll make Germany for 10 days. But yes, so going back to the topic at hand, the only other thing I've really watched that I can think of, I've been continuing watching Survivors as well. Mm-hmm. That's my morning thing, but I've talked about that. You all know about that.
Yeah,
the other thing is a weird thing, but something that I really like, which I feel I should mention because it's true to me. But it's called Terry Jones' Medieval Lives.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you've mentioned this.
I might have mentioned that before, but it's a really
because he's done several medieval things, hasn't he?
He has. He's an expert on Chaucer. He's a leading world authority on it, and he did this series for the BBC probably about 15 years ago now. But it's a really good little glimpse at history. It's the way he tells it is with a bit of Python, but it's really well put together history. It's so pleasant to watch because it's quite funny.
What are you watching that on?
The BBC uploaded it onto YouTube. It's on their like an official thing. But it's just such a pleasure to watch, and it brings history to life for you in a way that's kind of not you know. And then in 1066, you know, the Battle of Hastings occurred on this hill. There were many deaths. It's not like that at all, you know. It's him there going, you know, and there was a bloke who got an arrow to his eye, you know, really, and sort of, you know, him doing little sketches in there, but it's really well done, and it's not patronising. He basically takes all the different aspects of medieval life, from the monks, the peasants, the knights, the kings, and just talks about the different aspects of how they lived and the origins of it. It's well worth a watch. It's strangely captivating, really, and it's got a wonderful art style as well, because what they do with it is, again in a similar sort of Python-y way, is they take like the medieval illuminations and things and all the wonderful pictures, and they sort of put Terry Jones in those pictures, and it all moves around and he interacts with things, and it's just brilliant. And one of my friends she's a historian specialising in that field, she actually says that a lot of what he talks about is actually, as a historical source, it's very well done.
Oh, really?
And it's not, you know, it's not so fantastical. It's a really good programme to watch about history. where it's not based on, and he questions things like knights and their chivalric lore, which is, and there might have been laid down, but knights were far from chivalrous at all, and just things like that. Interesting, but real history, good telly, good telly if you like your history.
Yeah. It reminds me, I've been watching I was just trying to find it, actually. I can't find it. It was a documentary about war being glorified throughout history, and it goes back to the Romans and the Greeks and all that. So, yeah. Sounds like it's right up my strata.
I think you'll like it. It is... War, undoubtedly, has always been glorified, and rightfully so, because if you didn't glorify war, nobody'd fight, would they? I think it's the other thing, It's.
I mean, it's an interesting... It's fascinating... Right, they're putting forward all sorts of theories about different societies, thinking there was only progress through war. And anyway, listen, we've got a few emails to get through, and we're already quite a long way into this.
We can do
podcast.
It, Nick. If we B&Q it.
Now, do you want to do the first one?
I'm more than happy to do the first one. Yep. Subject on this one is Death Note and Cowboy Bebop. That was sent on the 24th of the 2nd, 2019. Oh, just hiccup there. I'm all right, though. At 3:03.
Okay.
He's died.
He hiccuped to death.
And this one is from Jack Phillipson. Dear men of many ring modulators. I like it already. In the last emails episode, Benji noted that the reviews for the live-action Netflix adaptation of Death Note compared it unfavourably to the original animated series. As someone who has seen both, I can definitely assert that the Netflix version is rather lighter in weight than the source material.
I've never weighed television programs, have you?
Well, they weighed 5 Narg notes. And this is partly down to it being a 100-minute film instead of a 37-episode TV series. The bigger issues are in regard to how it deviates from the feeling and style of the original, such as altering Light's motivation for killing criminals from a narcissistic belief that he is the person best placed to wield the power for good, to a simple revenge plot and wanting to impress a girl, or keeping L and Light separated for most of the story. The heart of what made the original series work was the chemistry between Light and L as they played mind games with each other. William Dafoe portrayed the death god Ryuk excellently, however. In my own time, as I've got to say this, Shinichiro Watanabe's... if I said that wrong, I can't read.
Well, you did better than I would.
It's probably completely wrong. Long Way to Return to Directing TV Anime Carol and Tuesday is coming out in April. I've returned to his much-loved directorial debut, Cowboy Bebop, a sci-fi neo-western about a skilled but luckless band of bounty hunters. The series runs the gamut of thrilling, comedic, surreal and melancholy, and features lusciously detailed and fluid hand-drawn animation. Every episode is also elevated by this sensational jazz soundtrack composed by Yoko Kanno. The show is often recommended to people...
Yoko Kanno?
I don't know Yoko Kanno,
no,
but...
I don't know Yoko Kanno.
Certainly a lot of the Japanese...
Anyone know Yoko Kanno?
A lot of the Japanese composers are utterly fantastic, especially some of the ones that used to do video games and stuff. Their music is so deep, it's on another level. Carrying with the email, the show's often recommended to people as a first anime, and with a good reason. It's exceedingly accessible genre classic and not to be missed out on, despite its excellent and only being one series. It was somehow cancelled in the middle of its original TV run in Japan due to low ratings, so it arguably qualifies as cult telly. Keep up the marvellous work, Jack Phillipson. Well, thank you very much for that one, Jack. I don't watch a lot of anime, and it's something that's intrigued me because I feel like I should. I feel like there's a whole genre out there of things that I've sort of not tapped into. I certainly admire the work that goes into it. I think it's just
definitely.
I think it's just finding things to get on with. I remember my ex-girlfriend was really into Howl's Moving Castle. And said that was just an incredible piece. But again, I never sat down and watched it. So maybe
What is that?
I don't really know anything other than it's this huge mechanical sort of castle building that moves around. It moves around the desert or something like that. Again, I never watched it, so I don't know. But yeah, maybe I'll have to delve into these. That's your recommendation. Yeah. But thank you very much for the email, Jack.
The next one is from our old friend Tom Hodden, who sent this on the same day as Jack Phillipson's, actually. Yeah. He sent it at 9:30 in the morning, though. So Thomas Hodden says, chaps, fantastic news from the merchandising department. The collected volumes of the Benji and Nick adventure comic are finally ready to print, on the proviso that we remove all references to the controversial free gifts from the original issues. In hindsight, a working tattoo gun, broken glass, a build-your-own firework kit, and a box of matches may not have been the wisest choices. And as ever, I offer my unreserved apologies to Mrs. Nider of Kemble, as required by the outcome of the court case.
The champion.
Should you both approve, the first volume will collect 60 issues covering the following storylines: Postbag of Nightmares, Planet of the BBVs, Lord of the Chroma Keys, Bus Stop of Terror, presumably starring Horror Blakey, Modulator of the Rings, What the Sod Was That? The Loch Ness Mobsters.
Yeah, that's right.
Love, Lust, and How Badass Benji Clifford Got His Groove Back.
Certainly did.
And of course the all-time classic, Tea Time of Ragnarok.
Yes, the North Way.
As a special bonus, we may even cram in the often forgotten and underappreciated photo comic Genesis and the Daleks. Although we would have to hope neither Phil Collins or the Nation Estate notice, as they both have better lawyers than me. Keep up the good work. Yours as ever, T. Hodden. Sent from a wobbly set in TV Centre.
Oh, amazing. Never fails to deliver the goods as well.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yes, Thomas, your emails are worth their weight in gold. They don't weigh anything, unfortunately.
They will weigh 42 candles of light. This next one here from Michael House, sent on the 4th of the 3rd, 2019 at 4:49 a.m. That's probably not the case, but that's what it says here. Dear Nick and Benji.
Well, he's in Japan, or I don't know. Is he in Japan? I can't remember.
Dear Nick and Benji, after your recent justifiable criticism of the awful 1960s movie titled Modesty Blaze, is it Blasé or Blaze?
No, it's definitely Blaze, although
Blaze.
She can be a bit blasé.
After your recent justifiable criticism of the awful 1960s movie titled Modesty Blaze, I thought you might appreciate this recent production which, whilst brief, does justice to the source material in ways that the aforementioned movie does not. Enjoy.
So there you go. Yours sincerely, yes, Michael House.
Well, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. So I didn't have time to listen to it. I hope the link's still up there.
Yeah, it's still up. Just clicked on it.
Oh, good. Well, Modesty Blaze is, I think was originally books and certainly comic strips in newspapers. Yeah.
Great that there's an adaptation there.
Thank you for that.
Rock and roll.
I know at some point someone at Big Finish was asking about whether we should do Modesty Blaze. Listen, I'm going to see if Jamie Anderson's around. I have a funny feeling he won't be. But it might be fun to find out.
He's gone to the moon.
No, he's unavailable. Yeah. I think we're going to have a run of podcasts where Jamie just doesn't appear. I mean, I suppose he was in the dining one, and that will, everyone will be sick of him by then. Oh yeah, he is. I can't repeat exactly what he said, but let's put it this way: he's saying he's in a swanky Soho club, but he is about to leave though. So shall I say? I'll tell him to call me. Shall I?
That's a good idea.
Hold on. Where is it? Just call me to be on the podcast.
You want to be a star?
Laughy emoji. Yeah. So, what are we going to do next week, Benji?
The backstroke, I suppose.
Why do you say that? You said that at another podcast. I said, "What do we do?" And you went, "Oh well, the backstroke on Wednesdays."
I don't know. I like to think up gags and then just regurgitate them in my own sort of strange way.
I suppose what I'm asking is, why is that funny?
Well, why isn't it funny?
And if not, why not? My name's James Burke.
Well, it's always good to one person's joke is another person's utter offence. I don't know what we can do next week.
Well, we can do the commentary for Death to the Daleks Part 3.
We certainly can.
Why can't I say Death to the Daleks? It's my favourite thing when I can't say it.
D-T-D-D.
Yeah.
Diddly-dee.
So we'll do that. And I have some more emails.
Sounds like a sterling idea.
Yeah.
What great! How exciting! Episode 3 of Death to the Daleks. Let's see what your teacher. Let's see if your teacher was correct on that one.
That is the one, isn't it? That starts. Oh no, it's actually episode 4, isn't it? Where they go into the city. Is it?
I thought it was episode. Oh, I don't know. You know, I
want
to.
The end of episode 2 of Death to the Daleks. We did it just the other. I can't believe I don't know that.
I want to say that they go in on episode 3 and it continues to 4. Yes, it does, because the cliffhanger to episode 3 is Stop, Don't Move. So of course they go into the city. Yeah.
On episode 4.
Yeah. No. They're already in the city, aren't they? When they Stop, Don't Move.
Yeah, but so they haven't been in there. No. So it was episode 3 we saw, because that's when he saw the
floor.
Yeah, God, I had a bit of Death to the Daleks panic then.
I don't know. Oh my God.
I don't know.
The mind cheats.
So we can either end this podcast now or wait for Jamie to call.
The weight of Jamie.
Well, we can't just wait for him, can we?
So I ask you a question from the random question generator.
Go on then.
Conversation topic starter. Amazing.
Yeah.
If you were invisible for a day, what would you do?
I can't possibly tell you.
What's your earliest memory?
My slippers. Tartan slippers, looking down at them on the bright yellow floor of my father's Ridgway's tea delivery van. He was a delivery man for Ridgway's tea. And I'm told I was extremely young at that time, like sort of 2 or 3, so it's quite astounding that I can remember that.
That is a very young memory, isn't it?
I remember the van as well, and he He had left that job by the time I'd reached the age, because normally kids can only remember stuff from about 4 onwards.
Yeah, that makes sense. That does make perfect sense.
Like Ben went to Australia with us when we went to some conventions there when he was 3, and he had a fantastic time, and he does not remember a single thing about it. And we said so at the time. We thought, this is so tragic, because he's having a great time in Australia with Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy and Paul McGann and John Leeson and Janet Fielding, and he's not going to remember any of this, you know.
Lost to the whatevers of the windmills of time, whatever it's called, the mists of time.
The mists of time.
Controversy.
It's myths, not the mids. It's the mists.
The mints of time.
The mints of time. Is that like lamb mince or peppermints?
It's obviously it's corn, isn't it?
Good. That's what I had last night in a cottage farm. Anyway, look, Jamie is not going to phone, so I think it's time to go.
Well, on that note, then, it's goodbye from me.
And still, I just hit the pop shield with my nose. Goodbye from me. Pressing stop now.
Ka-chunk.
Ka-chunk. Forgot to say it.
You fool, you old fool.